After the criteria for membership in the in-group have been identified, the existence of out-groups naturally follows. Someone who has never lived in Boston is excluded from the Bostonian in-group. People from New York, for instance, are part of an out-group for Bostonians. But for many Bostonians, the basic geographic test for in-group membership is only the tip of the iceberg. Some Bostonians will gladly list the many ways in which Bostonians and New Yorkers diverge, including accents, style of dress, and the qualities of their sports teams. These differences are sometimes highlighted as reasons for mockery or dislike, and animus runs in both directions, although it is usually light-hearted. The boundaries between in-group and out-group identities are often vague, highly subjective, and changeable over time. For instance, if you live in Boston for 40 years and then live in New York for 10 years, you may still consider yourself a Bostonian. If you live in New York for 25 years and then live in Boston for 15, you may consider yourself a Bostonian, but some Bostonians will consider you a New Yorker. Over time, and in particular contexts, the definition of Bostonian may expand to refer to people living in the greater Boston area, including suburbs. But when people within that in-group talk to each other, specific neighborhood identities may emerge as preferable to the broader metropolitan identity. How individuals categorize themselves is often context-dependent. You might identify as a Bostonian when speaking to a New Yorker, for example, but as a resident of South Boston when speaking to someone from another neighborhood, like the North End. This subjectivity and changeability can make it very difficult to determine who's in your in-group and who's out. Extremist movements are overwhelmingly concerned with taking the subjectivity out of that question. They seek to eliminate gray areas and clearly define the following. What makes an individual part of the in-group? Why the in-group has legitimacy? What makes an individual part of the out-group? Why the out-group is less legitimate than the in-group? How members of the in-group should interact with members of the out-group. The last element is perhaps the most important distinction between mainstream and extremist identities. When the stakes of in-group and out-group membership are low, the question of legitimacy is trivial, and peaceful coexistence rules the day. Bostonians who move to New York might be teased at family gatherings, maybe even taunted at sporting events. But these identities are not typically a matter of life and death. Defining the in-group. Identity starts at home. It is almost impossible to live in society without passively absorbing or actively adopting membership in some sort of in-group. You may not think of yourself primarily in terms of being white, for instance, but that affiliation will impact how other members of society interact with you during a job interview or a traffic stop. When an identity grouping evolves beyond matters of convenience and simplicity, such as demarcating where you live or go to school, it requires a narrative to explain the meaning of the collective, what the identity means, where it comes from, and where it is going. An in-group definition describes a prototypical or archetypical in-group member, defined by three major elements. Beliefs, the shared creed of an in-group. Most importantly, its values, but including secondary elements such as cosmology or metaphysics. Traits, descriptive qualities that apply to in-group members, including physical, such as skin tone or hair type, mental, intelligence or creativity, social, dialect, slang, and accents, or spiritual, virtuousness, or piety. Practices, what members of the in-group do and how they are expected to behave, including past behavior, the group's history, current behavior, how the group conducts itself today, future behavior, the group's destiny. Defining these qualities takes time, and not all identity groups will fill out every part of this narrative, but most of them eventually emerge in some form. Being born in Boston may be enough to qualify you as Bostonian, but committed Bostonians know how things are done in their city. They know and cherish the history of Boston's role in the Revolutionary War. They know what kind of chowder should be served.